Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and this is Voice of the Global South. All right, then let's get started on the show this week. We tell you all about the masterminds of the coup in Guinea-Bissau, how a military officer overthrows the very president he was paid to protect, and another general who was widely seen as being loyal to the ousted leader comes from nowhere to become the new head of state. In Nigeria, no one sleeps with both eyes closed anymore, not when Islamist insurgents and bandits act with impunity, terrorize people and kidnap schoolgirls with alarming regularity, all while police busy themselves protecting VIPs and the elites. We go behind the news to bring you the brutal truth of a nation held hostage by its own protectors. And Brazil's former president Jair Bolsonaro begins 27-year jail term. Is it the beginning of the end for Latin America's most polarizing figure? All that and much, much more coming up on Voice of the Global South. Guinea-Bissau in Africa falls under military rule again. On the morning of 26 November, gunfire erupts near the presidential palace. Witnesses describe sustained automatic fire, explosions and armored vehicles sealing off the city center. By noon, state television flickers to life, not with the result of a just concluded presidential election, but with a group of soldiers in military fatigues. The army proclaims total control, deposes the incumbent president Umaro Sissoco Embalo, announces the formation of a so-called high military command for the restoration of national security and public order, suspends electoral processes, shuts all borders, land, air and sea, stops media broadcasts, imposes a curfew, and with that, for the 12th time in 10 years, a nation on the African continent falls to military rule. The irony is brutal. The man who commands the presidential guard overthrows the very leader he is paid to protect. So who is Dennis Nkanya? Here's what we know about him. He is a career soldier in his early 50s, little known outside military circles until now, that is. Belongs to an ethnic group called Balanta. The Balanta people are among the largest ethnic groups in Guinea-Bissau. Serves in the 1998-99 Civil War as a young lieutenant, rises quietly through the ranks and earns a reputation for loyalty and discipline. President Embalo makes him a brigadier general and rewards him in 2021 with the most sensitive post in the country, head of the military office of the presidency. Effectively, he becomes the commander of the presidential guard and the president's shadow on every trip, every meeting, every midnight crisis. Sources inside the military describe him as a man who speaks little but listens to everything. And then there is General Hortha Ntanaman, who is sworn in as transitional president on 27 November. Wearing a military uniform and flanked by other military officers, the general makes his first public appearance as leader at a ceremony broadcast on state TV. He tells the nation that the coup was necessary to stave off a plot by narco-traffickers to capture power. He promises a one-year transitional period to restore stability and constitutional order. General Horta is a Balanta-like brigadier in Kanya. The Balantas are historically dominant in the military. Until 2022, General Horta commands the Presidential Guard. In February 2022, he plays a key role in repelling a coup attempt against Mr. Embalo and is rewarded with promotion to Brigadier General and command of the National Guard. In June 2023, he is promoted to Major General. Between September 2023 and November 2025, he serves as the Chief of General Staff of the Armed Forces. He is widely viewed as an Embalo loyalist. As for Mr. Embalo, he was seeking to become Guinea-Bissau's first president in 3 decades to win back-to-back terms. But as it turns out, his trusted lieutenants orchestrate a coup on the eve of the expected announcement of the result of a presidential election that was held on 23rd of November. That election pitted Mr. Embalo against opposition candidate Fernando Diaz. The man widely seen as a top challenger, former Prime Minister Domingos Simoes Pereira, was barred from contesting. Unable to run, he throws his weight behind Diaz. Both Embalo and Diaz declare victory, despite little evidence to support their claims. Incidentally, the 2019 election has ended in a similar situation, with 2 main candidates claiming victory, leaving the country in uncertainty for 4 months. Mr. Embalo has since confirmed to the Paris-based France 24 TV that he has indeed been deposed. He is reported to have been taken to the neighboring Senegal. Now, he landed in Senegal aboard a special flight following an intervention by the Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS, a regional political and economic union of countries in Western Africa. He was taken there on a military plane chartered by the government of Senegal. Mr. Embalo has said in the past that he survived 3 coup attempts during his time in office. Gunfire rang out for hours in the capital in December 2023 in what he said at the time was an attempted putsch. He dissolved parliament in response, and the country has been without a functioning legislature ever since. The most recent reported coup attempt took place in October when authorities announced that a group of military officers had been arrested on suspicion of trying to topple the government. Now, it would not be an exaggeration to say that Guinea-Bissau is synonymous with coup, corruption, cashew, and cocaine. Here's what you should know. Guinea-Bissau is located in Western Africa. It is bordered by Senegal to the north and Guinea to the east and south, with the Atlantic Ocean along its western coast. The Portuguese-speaking country is historically one of the most unstable and coup-prone countries in the world. It has an estimated population of 2.25 million people. It is among the world's poorest countries, with nearly 40% of the population living in extreme poverty. The country is ranked 174th out of 193 on the UN's Human Development Index. Agriculture is the main economic driver of Guinea-Bissau, one of the biggest cashew nut producers in the world. The crop dominates the country's economy. The World Bank says that cashew accounts for more than 80% of its exports. The economy has expanded in recent years, but chronic instability has made the country vulnerable to corruption and South American drug cartels. In fact, Guinea-Bissau has become a hub for drug trafficking between Latin America and Europe. For example, in September 2024, 2.6 tons of cocaine were seized from a plane that landed in Bissau from Venezuela. Guinea-Bissau is also among several countries in Western Africa that are grappling with the spread of Kush, a cheap and highly addictive drug that has ravaged the region's disaffected youth. The latest military coup has regional and international organizations worried. The ECOWAS expresses deep concern and calls for the unconditional restoration of constitutional order without delay. Election observer missions of the African Union, the ECOWAS and the West African Elders Forum issue a joint statement in which they describe the coup as an attempt to erode Guinea-Bissau's progress towards stability. They maintain that both the presidential and legislative elections have been orderly and peaceful. The statement goes on to say that it is regrettable that this announcement came at a time when the missions had just concluded the meeting with the two leading presidential candidates who assured us of their willingness to accept the will of the people. Incidentally, some foreign leaders visiting Guinea-Bissau were taken by surprise by the coup. Nigeria's former president, Goodluck Jonathan, and Mozambique's former president, Felipe Jacinto Nyusi, were in the country on an election observation mission. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says that he is deeply concerned about the situation. Former colonial power Portugal calls for all parties to avoid any acts of violence. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ghana says that the coup has brazenly disrupted the electoral process and blocked the anticipated announcement of election results, thereby derailing the country's democratic trajectory. South Africa calls for the immediate restoration of democracy and completion of the electoral process. France chimes in too by calling for the respect for the constitutional order and democracy. There's something else that you should know. What took place on 26 November is not new for Guinea-Bissau. Since its independence from Portugal in 1974, the country has suffered a number of successful military coups. In fact, Guinea-Bissau has had more successful coups than peaceful transfers of power. It is what scholars call the coup trap. Once a country crosses a certain threshold, the military becomes the only functioning institution, and every crisis is solved with rifles. But, and this is important, Guinea-Bissau is now the only African country that has seen so many coups. Africa has recorded at least, by my count, at least 12 successful military coups in 10 years. 3 times in Burkina Faso, twice in Mali, and once each in Chad, Guinea, Sudan, Niger, Gabon, Madagascar just last month in October, and now Guinea-Bissau. The playbook is identical. Accuse civilian government of corruption and electoral theft, promise elections when conditions allow, and dare ECOWAS to invade. Not surprisingly then that the streets of Bissau are calm. As the saying goes, the people of Guinea-Bissau have seen the movie before, and they probably already know how it ends. So no one is celebrating, no one is protesting. People are simply waiting to see which general will betray the next general. Coup leader Brigadier General Nkanya promises that the military will hand over power back to civilians as soon as stability is restored. But in Guinea-Bissau, those words have been spoken so many times that they sound like a national lullaby. Nigeria is in the news again after more than 200 schoolgirls vanished into the forest, the latest victims in a never-ending wave of terror and kidnappings. While parents wait in agony and children abandon classrooms forever, thousands of police personnel busy themselves guarding the elites. This is the story of a Nigeria abandoning its children to protect VIPs and guard empty mansions. Aman Kumar Himanshu has more.
In Nigeria, people are sleeping with one eye open. That's how scared they are. Ask businesswoman Efioma Eneke.
Everybody is so scared, even to sleep. If you are sleeping now, I don't think people are sleeping with their eyes closed.
A spate of kidnappings and other violent crimes has shaken the people's faith in policing.
I don't think anybody feels safe. Aside me, I don't think anybody feels safe for what is happening in Nigeria presently, because the kidnapping, the bandits everywhere, the killing. If you hear any noise anywhere, you just wake up, because everywhere is not safe in Nigeria presently.
And that's because few policemen are actually patrolling the streets. Most of them are busy providing security to VIPs. The latest kidnapping of more than 200 schoolgirls from a Catholic boarding school in the central state of Niger is a case in point. The incident took place on 21st November. St. Mary's Catholic School in Niger State is the target. Gunmen sprayed bullets into the air and then forced 300-odd students and 12 teachers and staff into the nearby forest at gunpoint. 2 days after kidnapping, some 50 students managed to escape and reunite with their families. 253 students are still being held by kidnappers. 12 teachers are also in captivity. So here's the nub of the problem. There are more police personnel on VIP security duty than for the protection of ordinary Nigerians. For decades, the Nigerian police force has brazenly prioritized the protection of elites over its constitutional mandate of protecting the general populace. According to the European Union Agency for Asylum, more than 100,000 of the estimated 371,000 strong force were assigned to protect politicians and other VIPs. The categories of people drawing police protection have expanded absurdly over the years. Both serving and former holders of public office, their wives and children all are covered as well. Religious leaders, managing directors of banks, business magnates all receive dedicated police details. In some cases, even retirees from high offices continue to get a security detail long after leaving public service. When all these layers are added up, tens of thousands of police personnel who should be patrolling the streets and protecting the public are tied up guarding private individuals. With such a massive diversion of manpower, a critical question emerges: how many police officers are truly left to safeguard more than 200 million ordinary Nigerians? The situation becomes even more troubling when viewed against Nigeria's overall police manpower. The United Nations recommends roughly one police officer for every 450 people. By contrast, Nigeria's current police force amounts to just one officer for every 637 people. This shortfall is more than a statistic. It is a nationwide crisis. Many rural communities have no police presence at all, leaving millions of Nigerians effectively unprotected. It is now crystal clear that public security is being compromised to maintain protection for the elites. Within the police force, the culture of VIP protection has created perverse incentives. Many officers actively lobby, push, and even fight one another for VIP postings because of the perks, financial gifts, foreign trips, general allowances, and benefits far beyond regular policing pay. This has undermined professionalism, drained manpower from frontline duties, and eroded public trust. That the police should serve and protect people, not act as a prestige accessory for the privileged, is only now beginning to dawn on the government. President Tinubu now says that he has directed the withdrawal of police personnel from providing security to VIPs. This is what he tells the Nigerian people. In view of the emerging security situation, I have decided to declare a nationwide security emergency and order additional recruitment into the armed forces. By this declaration, the police and the army are authorized to recruit more personnel. The police will recruit an additional 20,000 officers, bringing the total to 50,000. He admits the scale of recent attacks demanded urgent, coordinated action. Currently, Nigeria faces persistent violence from Islamist insurgents, armed bandits, and communal clashes that have killed thousands and displaced millions of people in recent years. And it bothers retired army officer Mike Kenbonkwu.
I will agree that military is overstretched. That's true. And not to the extent that it's a reason for inability to deal with the insecurity, especially the fight against insurgency.
The 21st November kidnappings are only the latest in a long list of similar crimes that have been reported in Nigeria. It is the 13th such incident in the past 11 years. Brings back memories of the 2014 Chibok schoolgirls kidnapping when Islamist terrorists belonging to the Boko Haram outfit abducted 276 schoolgirls from Borno State. Nearly 12 years later, dozens of them are still missing. For many Nigerians, kidnappings have become all too familiar. In another incident, in Kebbi State's mega town, 25 girls were abducted on 17th November from the government girls' comprehensive secondary school, but miraculously, all of them have since been rescued. In March 2024, more than 280 school children were abducted from the town of Kuriga. Schools are particularly soft targets. Since 2014, more than 1,400 students have been kidnapped. The statistics are staggering and alarming at once. Amnesty International warns that Nigeria's persistent failure to stop school kidnappings is putting a generation of children's education at risk. Following the recent mass abductions, more than 20,000 schools across 7 states have been closed indefinitely. On 29th May 2023, during his inaugural speech, President Tinubu declared his government will defend the nation from terror and all forms of criminality.
Security shall not come into our administration, because neither prosperity nor justice can prevail against insecurity and violence. To effectively tackle this, we shall reform both our security doctrine and its architecture. We shall invest more in our security personnel, and it means more than an increase in number. We shall provide better training, equipment, pay, and power.
And yet, despite his pledge, Nigerians continue to suffer the consequences of persistent insecurity, including kidnappings, killings, and destruction of property. Incidentally, the mass abductions take place at a time when US President Donald Trump is warning of military action against Nigeria for alleged prosecution of Christians. Nigeria dismisses US claims, but there's no denying that it does face multiple overlapping security crises across its central and northern regions. Terrorists continue to lay siege to communities, carrying out mass abductions, kidnappings for ransom with impunity. Across Nigeria, people are living through every family's worst nightmare. With armed groups carrying out repeated school abductions, they wait helplessly for the return of their missing children. With no clear answers, no timelines, and no assurances of their safety. For now, hope is all these parents have. Hope that their children will return safely. Hope that their pleas will somehow force the government to tackle this national tragedy head on. Aman Kumar Himanshu for DD India.
At 70 years old, Jair Bolsonaro just walked into prison to begin a 27-year sentence for plotting a coup in Brazil. The man who once packed avenues with millions is now locked in a cell, ankle monitor off, appeals exhausted. Supporters scream persecution, but President Lula's loyalists call it justice. And US President Trump stays silent. The Brazilian right is leaderless and fracturing fast. Aman Kumar Himanshu reports on the historic fall of Latin America's most polarizing figure from presidential palace to prison bars in under 3 years.
Brazil is divided. As former President Jair Bolsonaro is taken into custody, some Brazilians are praying, others are celebrating, and many are voicing their anger. Reactions are diverse because the moment itself is big and significant. On 26th of November, the far-right leader started serving a jail term of 27 years and 3 months. Brazil's top court ordered him to start his sentence after his defense team chose not to file a second appeal. Bolsonaro was convicted in September 2025 for attempting a coup in order to retain power after losing his re-election bid in 2022. The court convicted him on 5 charges: armed criminal conspiracy, attempted abolition of the democratic rule of law, attempted coup, violent destruction of public property, and damage to protected national heritage sites. The judges said that Bolsonaro was aware of a plot that included plans to assassinate President Lula and his vice presidential running mate, Geraldo Alckmin, and to arrest the execute Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes. The conspiracy was ultimately thwarted because it failed to gain the backing of the army and air force commanders. The judges also found that Bolsonaro incited rioters on 8th of January 2023, whose purpose was to force a military intervention to bring him back to power. Bolsonaro vehemently denied all the allegations. He said he was in the United States on 8th of January and claimed that he was a victim of a witch hunt. Currently, Bolsonaro is confined to a small room designed for high-ranking officials at the federal police headquarters in Brasilia. The room is equipped with an air conditioner, TV, and an ensuite bathroom. He is allowed a daily sunbath. The sentence did not begin immediately following the conviction in September to allow for legal appeals. Bolsonaro's lawyers had petitioned for the 27-year sentence to be served under house arrest, citing humanitarian grounds because of lingering abdominal problems resulting from a 2018 stabbing. However, this appeal failed. Prior to his imprisonment, the far-right leader has been under house arrest since August. On 22nd of November, he was preemptively arrested after using a soldering iron to tamper with the electronic ankle monitor that he worn for over 100 days under house arrest. This happened right after his son, Flavio, called for a vigil outside the former president's house. Bolsonaro blamed medicine-induced paranoia for the damage he caused to his ankle monitor, but Justice Alexandre de Moraes signaled that there were very serious indications of a possible attempt to flee. Bolsonaro's imprisonment marks the final chapter of his political career. In 2023, he was banned from holding public office for 8 years for abusing his powers and spreading false claims about voting machines. Despite this, he insisted on running in the election. Less than a year until October's general election, Brazil's right has no obvious leader. Infighting among potential candidates is growing. Aman Kumar Himanshu for DD India.
And with that, it's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.